Coming to you from the home of the #1 team in the National Hockey League, MetStar Capitals Iceplex here in Arlington. Welcome to this edition of the Rink Report. John and Tarek with you here. And my goodness, what a run this has been. The Capitals going to Toronto, going to Montreal, winning in both places, winning in two very different ways, doing everything right against Toronto and finding a way to gut one out against the Canadiens and atop the NHL with 40 points. What a run this team is on. Almost a third of the way through the season. Right. The Capitals are looking down on everybody right now.
Starting to feel sustainable.
Sure is.
Starting to feel really good. You know, if you go back to this exact day a year ago, the Capitals were 10th in the conference. And now they are first in the NHL.
It's amazing.
That really is amazing. And again, getting back to what I was saying about it feeling sustainable, they are leading the league in goals. They are 7th in the league in goals against. The power play is humming. The goaltending has been good. There's nothing about this that goes, that feels a little fraudulent. Maybe we should keep an eye on that. I mean, are they shooting the lights out? Yeah, there's some guys who have some pretty ridiculous shooting percentages. But when you have that many guys with ridiculous shooting percentages, if one or two fall off, you're still good. Oh, and by the way,
yes,
Alex Ovechkin's about to come back.
He is. Footage from practice yesterday. He did not skate with the team, but he did skate on his own and ramping up, as it would appear here. And amazing that here we are 3 weeks after the game in Utah, and it looks like he's going to, at some point, you got to think of the not-too-distant future, he's going to start skating with his teammates.
The thing that caught my eye today was it was over 20 minutes long, and he was out there with Zach Ledden, who had a clock in his hand. So, like you said, ramping up is probably the right way to put it. He's starting to exert himself a little bit more. He's starting to put a little bit more pressure on that leg. And so, having covered this team for a long time like you have, you know when guys are starting to get close. It's when someone from the training staff is out there with a stopwatch in their hand, because that's when they're starting to get the cardio and all that other stuff going. Look, I don't think he's coming back this week. But I do still feel like
before December's over,
other side of Christmas, maybe in Toronto on December 28th.
There's no way he's missing that game.
No.
I'm going to say that right now. He's going to a game in Toronto. I think it killed him to miss the last one this past weekend.
And they get 5 days off for the holiday break, so he'll have some time where I'm sure he'll get on the ice a little bit. I don't know. I might be run afoul of the CBA. I don't know how that works, but I will tell you this: he is going to do everything he can to be ready for that game in Toronto.
On the subject of sustainability and shooting the lights out, and Tom Wilson didn't like your phrasing, by the way, Jacob Chychrun with a wrist shot that hit Tom in the side of the face in Montreal. Jacob Chychrun, who, according to Dylan Strome after the game, might have the hardest wrist shot ever. He comes in, hits Tom in the side of the face. You think broken jaw. You think lots of bad things. Where did it hit him? Gets him in the cheek. Is he going to be able to? Is this long term? Spencer Carberry thought as soon as it happened, he told us after the game in Montreal, he was just hoping it wouldn't be long term. He missed one shift, and then he scored 2 goals in the third period where he looked like a squirrel that had found too many nuts out, too many acorns, and he goes out there and he gets 2 goals, including the game winner. That was one of the best hockey performances I have ever seen.
You're right. I mean, every time I looked down at my monitor, his face was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I was like, oh my God, that doesn't look great. And we should note he's not out there, as far as I have seen, for practice.
If there's anybody that deserves a maintenance day, it is Tom after that.
I mean, he's going to have to put his modeling career on hand. Sorry, ladies. But, it's been a tough stretch here for Capitals players' faces. I mean, Dylan Strome lost half a tooth.
Dylan Strome would like a word, yes.
Yeah, also got hit in the face a game later, took a high stick.
A game in between, and then another high stick, and he's had a rough facial stretch as well.
And you know what, I've said this before, but those are tall guys. Usually the guys who are catching strays are the guys who are like a Connor Sherry, who's 5'8", he's down in the weeds, down around the elbows. It's rare for those guys who are 6'3", 6'4", like Strome and Wilson to be catching stuff up here, but it does happen. But getting back to Tom Wilson's toughness, I mean, what more can you say about that? Not just toughing it out and finishing the game. I mean, he was a force. He was the best player on the ice.
Star.
Those were clutch goals. And, Tom had that hot start. Then he cooled down a little bit. Shooting percentage dipped a little bit. But you know what? He's back. He's back in a big way. And he's just one of those guys that can just change the complexion of a game in so many different ways with a big hit, with a fight, with a goal, with an assist, with a block shot on the penalty kill. He does so many things for this team, and hopefully his face, he can get some more ice. And also the cameras caught him a couple times icing his face during the game. Hopefully, it doesn't look so bad next time we see him.
Doesn't do a lot for the swelling, or at least it didn't over the weekend, but certainly going to get better. Staying on that line, Connor McMichael now tied for the team lead in goals. He gets a goal in Toronto with his 15th of the year. Yeah. It was the game winner. And from nearby Ajax, Ontario, he dreamed of a moment like that. Love that moment. That might have been my favorite moment of the trip, that he gets the game winner with so many friends and family in the stands. And talking about it afterward, you knew that one meant a lot to him.
He said it.
And that's, to me, that's where all these things for this team are just going right, and it's almost in storybook fashion. Of course, Connor McMichael comes up with a winner. Of course, Wilson and the rest of the Ontario guys come home and get a win. The Capitals hadn't won in that building in over 5 years. It was a great scene in Toronto on Friday.
I know I've kind of harped on this quite a bit, but the thing that really I am heartened by when I look at McMichael's numbers is he has figured out how to score at this level. I mean, every one of his goals, it seems like, has come from right around the blue paint. And he's not the biggest and strongest guy on this team, right? I mean, what does he go, about 5'11", 6 foot? 180, 185. Like, he's not a power forward by size, but he plays like a power forward.
Yeah.
I mean, that goal the other day, he essentially raced to the net, waited for the puck to kick out to him, took his time, and roofed it. And if you look at his analytics also underscore how good he has been around the net. He's one of the top players in the league in rebound chances. He's one of the top players in the league in inner slot shots. He is doing some really good stuff around the net, and he's also got a great shot that he's going to be able to, as he gets older, he can snipe them too. If you can now add the inner slot stuff to that great shot and that great release he has, this is a guy who's going to score 30, 35 goals a number of times in the league.
Big picture sustainability, too. He's not the only guy that's going to the front of the net. Capitals getting a lot of goals right in between the dots and going where Angels fear to tread. We're going to have Logan Thompson joining us in just a couple of minutes. Yeah. Sensational game from him on Saturday in Montreal. 4 straight breakaways. He stopped in the third period. On a bad side, the Capitals gave up 4 breakaways in the third period, and Spencer Carberry chuckling a little bit. You can chuckle when you end up getting the win. Obviously, that wasn't great. But for LT, as the guys call him in the room, to be able to essentially will their way into getting a win. Listen, Montreal should have won that game. They should have. I thought Montreal played great for a team that, they've got some speed. They're a little suspect defensively, but they dictated a lot of the pace of that game at home, and they lost anyway in large part because of Logan Thompson.
And, I know Logan will tell you, the Four Nations thing wasn't a big motivating factor. That was a lot of media hype. I don't know if I was really on the radar. He knows that the Canadian managers were coming around to the rinks and keeping a close eye on him, and then he didn't get that spot, right?
Didn't get the call.
Nobody
called him.
And you know who did get the call? The guy who was in the other net in Montreal. And if you don't think that Logan, and he'll never admit it, was a little bit more motivated by that snub, I don't know. I got a bridge to sell you.
Well, we've got a conversation with him right now. We had a chance to catch up with him earlier. Happy to have Logan Thompson joining us here on the set here at MetStar Capitals Iceplex. This was a very busy weekend, a very productive weekend for you and Charlie both, picking up wins north of the border. And you saw a few more breakaways than you might have wanted in the third period there, but a big game for you, big game for the team, and you guys are on top of the NHL. How much fun are you guys having right now?
Yeah, it's awesome. And then going on that road trip to Canada, those are 2 hard rinks to win in, and they're also fun rinks to play in. So I think we like the opportunity that was given to us, and I think the guys came and put on a great performance in Canada.
All right, Logan, level with me. What's going through your mind when you're getting that third breakaway and then that fourth breakaway?
It's actually really it was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
it's kind of when you start to feel it late in a game, and
all right,
it was exciting. It was a back and forth hockey at that moment, and just a lot of fun, especially being in Montreal with that crowd. So overall, just enjoying it.
You're good on breakaways. You're really good on breakaways.
Oh, you don't got to jinx it. Yeah.
sorry. So what is your mental approach when you got a high end player bearing down? It's just you mano a mano.
I just try to trust my abilities. I really don't like to think, and I definitely try not to overthink it, and just trust my instincts. And sometimes it works out, and these players is the best players in the league in the world. So sometimes they're able to beat you as well.
Yep.
You guys have had 5 wins this season, playing on 0 days rest on the back half of 2-2s, and now 9 straight wins on the road. What is it with you guys? You just like the hotel food? Like, what's going on here? It's just like hanging out together? What's the success? It's never happened in 50 years here.
Yeah, I think it's just it's always fun going on the road, and just getting together with just the guys, and going for dinner, and just it's more bonding for us, and I think that's how it's been. And obviously it's tough at back-to-backs, but I don't know what it is. Food at the hotel is just really good, I guess, and it's just paying off.
So I've been covering this team for 2 decades now, and they've made some deep runs. Obviously, I covered the Stanley Cup. There's it's hard to describe in words, but you kind of get this feeling when there's a kind of a specialness to a group, like really tight, playing for each other. They really like each other. I'm starting to get that feeling about this team. Are you feeling that as well?
Yeah, I mean, I was very fortunate enough to be a part of a Stanley Cup team in Vegas, and this feels the same way. Guys are playing for each other.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun coming to the rink. There's a lot of love in that dressing room. We play for the coaches, we play for the guy next to us, and everyone's buying in, and it doesn't matter who's scoring at the end of the night. We're just happy that our teammates are putting points up, and we're getting 2 points as a team.
Yeah.
We're thinking about that same concept too when Pierre-Luc Dubois after the game used the word grateful to be here, and just incredibly happy to have the opportunity to be on a team like this. And I still marvel at the fact that you guys, a lot of you came from a lot of different places to come here this year. It wasn't the same group from a
third
year
of the
ago.
roster
turned over, and it just, you guys bonded together so quickly. And I was struck by that when he said, he's just grateful to be here after, being with 3 other teams. What is that chemistry about for the new guys, not just you, but for the other guys coming in here and just feeling right at home seemingly right away?
Yeah, I mean, I understand, why he would say that, and, I feel the exact same way. I think they brought in a bunch of guys, I think, who, it almost seemed like the league was, maybe kind of giving up on, or just, didn't really have, the best of things to say. And I think a lot of guys are coming in to prove people wrong. And credit to the vets that were here before us with, Willie and Ovi and Osh. And, they brought in 7 guys, and they made us all feel at home. And, we're immediately doing stuff as a team and hanging out off the ice, and it's been great. And I think that's just us bonding off the ice is a reason why we're connecting so well on the ice.
I've covered this team many years, especially when they've had those great years. They've won 3 President's Trophies. You guys are atop the standings. And one thing players always told me was, when you're at the top, teams really gun for you, maybe give you that extra 5-10% when you're in their building especially. Are you starting to feel that a little bit?
Yeah, I think at the start of the year, I think teams maybe weren't taking us as serious, and I think now it's completely different. I think we're getting every team's best.
Yep.
I think you look at the Montreal game. I think they came out real hard against us, and it wasn't an easy game, especially on a back-to-back. But you're definitely starting to see it now. Teams are expecting. We're expecting to get teams 100% every night.
Yeah.
You had all these back-to-backs, and now a little bit of a breather. And really, for the first time for you and Charlie both, you're not going there seemingly every other day. You're splitting a lot of back-to-backs. You're both getting a lot of time. Is it good to get a little bit of rest right now to have this 4 days, or would you rather be in a rhythm like you have been because things are going pretty well?
No, I think it's good. Whenever you can get rest, that's it's always huge. And then obviously, more rest for O as well, and we want to get him back soon too. And for me and Chucky, I think we're not playing back-to-backs, and we're getting a lot of rest, and I think that's helping the team. I think when you have 2 guys going and rotating, I think it's giving the team the best chance to win every night.
You're top 10 in so many categories. I mean, not just talking about the analytics, even the standard numbers, record, save percentage, goals against average. Is this the best you have felt?
It's definitely the best mentally I've felt. Okay. Like I said, it's easy to come to the rink. It's easy to put the jersey on, and easy just to go out there and play. And I think, when you mentally have a clear head, I think that is the best case scenario for a goalie.
Yeah.
Well, Logan, we appreciate you taking some time and joining us here on the show. Good luck this week, and keep it rolling. It's been a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Logan.
Always great catching up with Logan Thompson, a colorful individual
Yeah.
to be sure. Hey, we've got college hockey coming to our town here.
We do, absolutely. We got an interview coming up with Army head coach Brian Riley, who coincidentally also recruited my son, who's hopefully going to be
no bias here whatsoever.
who's going to be on the West Point hockey team next year. But Riley, great coach, has been there a long time. He's stepping down at the end of this year after 21 years at the helm, and it'll end a run of 75 consecutive years of a Riley being in charge of a Division I hockey team. How crazy is that?
That is crazy. Let's have a listen right now.
Well, pleased to be joined by Army West Point head coach Brian Riley. Brian, tell me, how did the Capital Hockey Classic come together?
Yeah, so it was a year ago or so. Don Fishman from obviously the Caps or the facility called and said, "Hey, with Army Navy football being played down here, we'd love to have a hockey game." And I thought, yeah, like that would be great to be down there during the Army Navy game. And then he said, "Well, who do you think would be a good opponent?" And I knew that we had Penn State scheduled to come in here this year, and I just figured they travel well. So and Guy Godowski, coach at Penn State, his son plays for us, so it seemed like a good match, and he was all about it. So yeah, we're really, really thankful that we're getting this opportunity.
What is the significance, Coach, of having the game here in D.C. with all the ties to the military?
Well, that's like we're going to be able to play down in D.C., which I don't need to tell you is basically the home of our military, right? And a lot of West Point grads down there, a lot of people that serve in the Army down there, they've never probably had a chance to see us play. So I just know how much pride that those that serve take in their respective services. And so I would imagine that we will get a good Army turnout for sure.
So I believe this is the 8th all-time meeting between Army and Penn State. And if I remember correctly, last year's game was crazy.
Don't even bring up last year's game.
Tell me about that game.
We were up 6-2 with 26 minutes to go.
Oh my goodness.
And I remember looking at the clock, still feeling like, oh gosh, there's a lot of time left. And wouldn't you know it, in the last minute of the second period, I'm just trying to get out of the period up 6-2. And we turned the puck over. They scored, and then they come out and score in the first minute of the third. And I was like, this is not going how I had hoped. But yeah, so that was one of those games as a coach, at least on our side, you'd like to forget about. But yeah, hopefully we can get a different result. But obviously Penn State, Big Ten school, they have a great deal of skill. And so we're going to have to match that with a great deal of will, right? To hopefully put ourselves in a position to win a hockey game down in D.C.
I want to hear a little bit more about the Godowskis, Guy and Matt going head to head. How cool is that?
No, it's cool because I can certainly relate to it. I mean, growing up at West Point, myself and my 3 brothers all played against my dad. And then a few years back, my 2 sons played at Mercyhurst against me. So I know exactly what they're going through. And I told Mac a year ago before we were getting ready to play, you know what? Just go out and play. Like don't try to do anything more than you need to. You're a great player. You will be fine. And I think he had a point or two that game. And even for Guy, I told him, wow, just enjoy every minute of it, because as I get ready to retire from coaching, some of the highlights of my career will go back to when I had the opportunity to coach against my own kids.
So you brought it up there, Brian. This is going to be your last year. You announced
Yeah.
that before the start of the season. 21 years. It's going to come to bring to an end 75 consecutive years of O'Reilly being at the helm of West Point. What does it mean to you that you guys, your entire family, has racked up more than 1,000 wins for the Black Knights?
So 75 years is what I really think of. And honestly, Tariq, like as a kid growing up, my dad kept the gold medal in his top drawer, and I would always take it out and show people. And I thought to myself, like, why does Dad stay at West Point? Like, he's a gold medal coach. He was a great player at Dartmouth. He played in the Olympics. But now having sat kind of where he sat, I know why he stayed. Like the opportunity to coach the young men and be around the young men and women that I get to be around every day makes this the most rewarding and humbling coaching. I don't even call it a job, opportunity in all of sports. So I knew that this year was going to be year 75. And I thought, wow, that seems like a pretty good year to maybe, it can't last forever. Although my son, Jack, will be on the staff here with Zach and honestly, Zach McKelvey, a young legend. Man that I recruited here and that he and I have coached together for 10 years. Like, there is no better person anywhere to take this program over. And honestly, like, I don't want to hold him back anymore because I know that he's going to bring this program to a different level. And I'm excited to watch him and what he does with the program. But back to the 75 years, there's nothing that I will ever be able to do to repay West Point and college hockey for all that is given, not only me, but the Riley family.
That was great. So one of my favorite things that's happened the past couple of years, you guys are an NCAA team, not an NHL team, but the Stanley Cup seems to always find its way to take Rink. How cool is it that the last two champions, their owners are West Point grads?
Well, exactly. So when we recruit young men, I know a lot of schools recruit young men and say, hey, come to our school and you will have a chance to play in the NHL. Now what I tell recruits is, hey, you come to West Point and you can own an NHL team. By the way, win Stanley Cup. So, you know what? Really, really special to have Vegas and Florida here with the Cup. And it's always amazing to see the reaction of those players when they're around West Point and when they're around the cadets. I think they're just blown away by the history and the tradition and the young men and women that actually are the cadets here at West Point today. So that's been really, really neat. Hopefully, you know what, in the future, they'll be back, or maybe there'll be another West Point grad who owns one of these teams. It could be your son someday.
who for people who don't know, is a recruit and will be coming in next year to play hockey at West Point, which is awesome. Brian, this was great. Let's leave it there. I know there's going to be a lot of active and retired military in the stands on Thursday cheering hard for West Point. Thanks again and good luck.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Capital Hockey Classic coming to Capital One Arena. This guy's going to be on the call for this one. How pumped are you for this?
Yeah, I'm really excited. I've actually only seen in person one Division I hockey game my entire life.
You're kidding? Really?
Really crazy, right? And it was New Hampshire at Boston University.
That's a good one.
You know what stands out to me? Well, Trevor Zegras was in that game, but what stands out to me about that game was the BU kids, they only chanted about Boston College the entire time, totally ignoring the fact that they were playing New Hampshire, which has to be the most disheartening thing if you're playing for New Hampshire. They don't even
probably look at it that way. New Hampshire, pretty good group too. Trevor Van Riemsdyk coming out of the University of New Hampshire. The Four Nations rosters were announced since we were with you last, and the Capitals are not at all represented. And from a team standpoint, you say, okay, guys are going to get some time off in February, get ready for the stretch run. But from an individual standpoint, obviously a lot of guys that were pretty disappointed, including our guest today, Logan Thompson, John Carlson, Tom Wilson, even Jacob Chychrun, all left out.
Maybe even Dylan Strome. It makes no sense to me, John, that a team that has as many points accumulated already as the Capitals, and you don't just get there by luck. That means there's a lot of players who are having outstanding individual performances to kind of power that upshot to first place in the league. And for no one to have been tapped to play in that tournament, first of all, I mean, look, it's a contrived tournament, but it's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, it's the first time we've seen best-on-best hockey in a long time. But for Caps fans to not have anyone to cheer for, that just doesn't seem right to me. And it was funny. I was joking with Spencer Carberry the other day. I was like, before the Olympics, you got to figure a way to get a job with Hockey Canada, because otherwise the Caps aren't getting any players for the Olympics either.
Yeah.
It was disappointing. I mean, Logan Thompson probably had a good shot at it. He kind of downplayed getting left off. Talked to John Carlson off to the side. He was annoyed. Tom Wilson, he was annoyed.
Easily the most Canadian thing ever. But while we were in Toronto last week, TSN came out with the all-snub team for Team Canada, the guys who didn't make it. And Dylan Strome didn't even make the snub team. He wasn't even in the next four centers, which is
ridiculous.
Crazy to me.
That's ridiculous. But I will say this. There's still a month of NHL hockey to be played before that tournament. Guys are going to get injured.
Caps are going to get somebody.
I would think that a guy like Tom Wilson, I feel like he was probably one of the last players cut. I bet he's got a good chance. I bet even Carlson might have a decent chance of being an injury replacement. Now, the thing for a guy like Carlson now is, okay, well, you didn't pick me the first time around. I'm going to Aruba or wherever I'm going.
Correct.
Good luck, Team USA. I'm not speaking for him, but it does burn a little bit when you aren't picked for that first on that first cut.
You really do sound like Carly's agent at this point. The tournament, as this sounds, as you move forward, that's a break, right? So the break in February, but there's also a little bit of a mini break right now as far as the Capitals are concerned. No game until Thursday. A game in Columbus, Buffalo coming in on Saturday.
Yeah.
This is much needed, I think, for a lot of guys. Talked to a number of guys in the room today. Talked to Rasmus Sandin about this. Talked to Jacob Chychrun about this. And both pretty happy for the break. We asked Logan Thompson a little bit about it as well. He had a lot of back-to-backs. This has been a grueling few weeks. There is, rest versus rust here. You don't want to be able to come out ready on Thursday, but I think this team needs a little bit of a break here right now.
I always feel like that sword cuts both ways. This team's on a roll right now. When you're winning games, you don't want to take a break. I mean, it's good for the body, and it's even good for the mind to get a few days away from the rink. They will have taken Sunday off, then they get Tuesday off as well. That doesn't happen a whole lot over the course of a grueling NHL schedule. So mentally and physically, but, man, when a team is playing the way this team is right now,
get back out there every other day.
Get back there out there every day and rack up the points.
Capitals will face Columbus on Thursday at 7 o'clock, Nationwide Arena, back at home on Saturday. Not many home games left between now and the holiday break. Buffalo coming to town 7 o'clock on Saturday night. He is Tarek, I am John, and thank you for tuning in to this edition of the Rink Report.